How are you, man? I'm Gil Roth, and you're listening to a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories Show podcast. This is a COVID check-in episode where I record with a past guest of the show to find out how they're holding up during the pandemic. As far as how I'm doing, okay. Didn't sleep great last night. I've got a hip issue going on, which is probably the result of too much running and this long-ass walk that Amy and I took yesterday. I'm supposed to run this morning, but I think I'm going to rest it and see how it feels tomorrow. The other not great thing about yesterday's walk is that when we came home, we discovered that our dog, Bendico the Greyhound, had torn out a back claw at some point and bled all over the place. We always laugh about his separation anxiety and how he stands in the living room window watching us as we leave before he starts crying and throwing his toys around and generally, venting. This time, looks like he must have been running up and down the hall and caught his back paw on the rug in the living room, since that's where I found aforementioned claw. Anyway, we bandaged that up, cleaned the paw first, then bandaged, then cleaned all the blood in the hallway while Amy called the vet to see if all this was serious enough to bring him to the emergency vet on a Saturday. They looked at the pictures we sent over, figured, it can wait until Monday when our local vet is open. So Bendico is all bandaged up and moping around this morning. That was my Saturday, along with finishing the FX series Devs and nearly finishing William Gibson's Agency, which I'll wrap up today. I've got some heavy business calls tomorrow and don't have any of these episodes recorded, so let's get to this one so I can try and find someone to record with on a Sunday afternoon. Maria Alexander is checking in from L.A. this episode. Maria is the author of several novels, including Mr. Wicker, which we talked about in 2014, as we discover during this conversation, and the trilogy Snowed, Snowbound, and now Snowblind, which is coming out in a month or so. That's all a YA series known as the Bloodline of Yule trilogy. Yule is Y-U-L-E. She mentions another pseudonymous book during our conversation, No Rhyme Goes Unpunished, which she published as Quentin Banks. That's pretty much all you need to know. As caveats go, not a lot, just it's a fun conversation. Take that as two people who are using the opportunity to just lighten up rather than us not taking this whole situation seriously, And that's sort of the point with this whole series, not to be portentous and apocalyptic, especially now that we're weeks and weeks and weeks into this period, but to help kind of cope with stuff. Here's me and Maria. So tell me, how are you dealing? How are you coping right now?
I mean, at first it was really rough. I think it has been for everybody.
Sure.
I mean, I would go into a grocery store with the mask on and the gloves and everything, and there would be like just a small number of people in there because they still only let us in a few at a time. And I would get choked up. I mean, it would just hit me like what we were going through, how serious this was. And, and I had to mourn normalcy, the loss of normalcy completely. I mean, I've been coping mostly. I did up until this week. I had 2 freelance clients. One's had to shut their doors permanently. The other one had to pull back on their budget for freelancing. And I mean, to survive. And I totally get it. And they're people I've worked for before, and I really adore them. So I get it. But the other thing that sort of kept me sane is just writing. Just pouring everything into my writing, all the anxiety and the depression and like all the feelings, just pouring it into whatever I'm working on, and also using that as an escape, and watching Bewitched. I found.
Well, to ask Howard Stern's great question, which dick do you like the most?
Oh, no question. Dick York. Dick York.
Okay.
No, I found out that a friend of ours, his dad wrote a bunch of episodes back in the day.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, so I sent him a message to our friend to give his dad, because obviously we can't see him now, to tell him how much his work meant to me as a kid. I mean, it hugely inspired me and shaped who I was. And that and I Dream of Jeannie, like those two shows were everything. Yeah, duh. So that and the $1 Million movies, which were all, like all the monster movies. But yeah, I mean, so when I found that they're on IMDb for free, I realized, I have to watch all of them. So that's what I've been doing. And they are so innocuous and so silly, and they're actually really good. Like in a lot of ways, I'm impressed to this day. I was like, wow, these are good. The acting's great. The chemistry between Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick York is outstanding. And I just, and Endora. Oh, I love Endora. In a way now that I could not appreciate as a child. Oh my God. And Aunt Clara, of course, because we're all getting there. So anyway, that's been my strategy, and my husband and my cats, they keep me sane.
Those were two of the items I have on my little bullet list: Brett and cats. Those are the two things I want to make sure everyone's getting along okay, and the domestic equilibrium is struck. Good.
Well, Brett, he works in the entertainment industry, and actually his work as a security data security professional, I guess is what you'd call him. He is considered essential. So he actually has to still work. He has to go into the building, downtown Hollywood or West Hollywood or whatever. And he has to do his thing, and they're trying to get him set up to work at home, but that hasn't happened yet. I'll be immensely relieved when it does. And I think it's going to be one big pajama party once he's here all day. But I don't anticipate any problems. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The kitties are all fine. And, they're always fine. The little girl kitty drives me crazy, but I love her. So.
Oh, it's okay. Amy and I just got back from a 2-hour walk without Bendico, our greyhound, figuring, he doesn't go for long walks. He just runs around inside the house, freaked out when we're gone because we're never coming back. We get home.
Of course.
And the house looks like the first 48. Blood everywhere.
Oh, no.
Apparently, while running up and down the hall, he tore a back claw, and so he lay there licking that for a while. He seems fine, and we're cleaning it up. We'll take him to the vet Monday if we don't hear back from their call-in service today. But it was one of those, like, you could sort of plan for keeping control of every situation, but, we went for a 2-hour walk and came back to that as one of those, okay, there are things, life's just going to keep throwing these messed up curveballs at you, but... Yeah. Otherwise, pajama party. So.
Yeah. Watching What We Do in the Shadows and and just being silly and just having fun. This is actually Brett's birthday weekend. So this afternoon, what we're doing is with a bunch of his friends from Yale, we're doing this cross-country reading of the importance of being earnest. And we're all just switching off parts. We have one of our friends is directing, and he's an actor. He's been in Broadway tours and also he's really great. And he's directing the whole thing, and it is a lot of fun to do these. And only a few people in these actually know how to act. And they of course, pop out and sound amazing. But it's like it's so much fun. It's really a lot of fun. So that's what we're doing later, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a blast. So for what you could, as much of a blast as you can have on Zoom, anyway. It's
that's part of the thing. You got to try to maximize what's there. There's no point in bumming out over the things we're not getting. So
yeah,
just try to figure out the tweaks to what, again, I would much rather be doing this in person than,
oh yeah.
In fact, I tweeted last night, it's about time I started making new past podcast guests. So I have to start figuring out how I'm going to do this with people I've never spoken with before, because
Oh yeah.
I know you and I have spoken once 3 or 4 years ago, but we can fall into a pretty easy rhythm of conversation. Doing this with somebody I've never actually spoken to, it'll be interesting, but
it's been more than that though. I think it's been like 5 years almost. It's been like almost,
I want to
5
say
years.
I think maybe 2016. I have to look at my little archive page
No,
now.
because we were at the condo, and when you and I had spoken, and we left the condo in February of 2016, and we moved into the house. So it must have been like 2015.
Oh crap! It was 2014.
2014.
Yeah, it was November, because it was that fall I came to LA and we've recorded with Wayne White the same weekend.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! So it's going to be 6 years in this fall.
Yes.
But still, we can fall into an easy rhythm of conversation. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
When we talk about writing, are you and pouring everything into the writing?
Yeah.
Strictly one big fiction project right now, or is it diffused among different things that you're working on? Are you working on different stuff right now, or are you working on one big fictional thing, I guess?
Well, I'm putting the finishing touches on Snowblind, which is the third book in the trilogy, and it's coming out really soon. I better wrap that up. We already postponed the publication date once, just because everything just went to hell all at once, and it just didn't seem realistic to try to function and get a book out at the same time.
Sure.
So just basic functioning was, almost not possible. So, so it's coming out June 1st. I'm just not doing all the publicity for it or anything. I figure the publicity has to be for the first book. And so that to get people to buy all 3 books. And this is going to be, I'm hoping this is going to be in a certain amount of passive income for a while. Now that the trilogy is complete, people feel like, oh, there's a trilogy. Because I think people are a little hesitant to get into something unless it's complete.
Trust me. I've been like this with Robert Caro's Lyndon Johnson biography. I refused to start it until I knew he was going to live to finish the whole thing, which his wife took very badly when I posted a blog thing about that like 12 years ago. But,
oh dear.
well, she just wrote like the next morning saying that no, he's exercising every day and he's on course and blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, he split the final volume into 2 volumes, a la Hunger Games and everything else, except with Lyndon Johnson. And he's still cruising along, so presumably it'll come out. But I'm still waiting on all 5 books now before I get started. So.
Well, so the other things, I have worked on some other things. I've taken some breaks. I'm really happy with some of the new things I've been working on that are coming out this year, mostly like comedy crime. I have a short story coming out called Dangerous Deductions in the Shattering Glass anthology. That's oh my god, I'm trying to remember who all was involved with that. Lots of famous authors. Kelly Stanley is the publisher. She created a brand new press called Nasty Women Press, and the anthology, I think, is Heather Graham. Heather Graham edited it. Oh my God, what's wrong with me?
This is the writer Heather Graham and not Roller Girl from Paul Thomas Anderson, because I always screw that up. So I was just making sure it's the right Heather Graham. Bowfinger is usually the movie I default to with Heather Graham references, but you're in LA, so.
No, Heather Graham, the writer, and Valerie Plame wrote the intro.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's going to be killer. But this little story that I wrote, the one of the copy editors, and it was Barb Goff, she sent me a private message after she had edited the story, and she said, "Maria, this story is such a hoot." And it's based on real events from when I was a child. My dad was a tax collector for the Franchise Tax Board, and he would do crazy things while we lived here in LA. He would drive us up into the Hollywood Hills while my mom was working, and he'd make my sister and I get down in the back seat where we couldn't be seen, and he would park near these really wealthy houses, and he would dumpster dive. He'd go through their trash looking for evidence of tax evasion.
Wow.
Yeah, and I told my mom one day, and she flipped out, and I only told her because it was the most exciting thing that had ever happened. I wasn't trying to get my dad in trouble. I just thought it was fun.
This is great. Yeah.
This is great. But of course, in Dangerous Deductions, the two little girls, the dad actually gets caught by the house that he's digging through is actually owned by drug dealers, and he gets caught. And so dad has promised them that he's going to take them to see Star Wars. This is in 1977. And so they're like, we've got to get daddy because we want to see Star Wars.
We're going to Star Wars. Hell or high water.
So anyway, I had so much fun writing that story. And then another one that's coming out in the next, this one I just wrote for the new Sherlock Holmes anthology, edited by Les Klinger and Laurie King. And it's called Cumberbachelor. And I know these stories are supposed to be inspired by canon. And this sort of is very loosely, but it's about this young woman who discovers her mother is one of these Cumber bitches, which is these women who doesn't believe that Benedict Cumberbatch is actually married and has children. And so when when somebody claiming to be Benedict Cumberbatch proposes to her mother, this woman has to find out what's going on before there's a family disaster. And that was another one I had so much fun writing. And I said it here in LA, and I make fun of everybody because LA is a very silly place.
Yeah, speaking of, like, what's the vibe out there? Like, how is this whole thing? How's it being received? Like, what's the take? Is there a take? Because I know from my scant experiences, it's the most fragmented, like, neighborhood built up into a city place I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's extremely fragmented. And, people, my take so far is, like, from standing in line and all that, I mean, for the most part, people are so much more considerate and just nicer in general. I mean, I have encountered some assholes, but for the most part, the people, like in the grocery stores or standing in line, people really kind of been looking out for each other. And it's a very, but I don't know. I mean, like I'm already in my bubble.
Sure.
I just, my big nemesis are my neighbors that they're young and they're renting and they just think that, well, no, we're home. So we're just going to make as much noise as possible. And, I've had to have a talk or two with them and just say, look, we're all stuck here. And we're all, because I'm also the block captain for the street. So I'm the contact with the LAPD liaison. And so I have to talk with them and go, look, and they're still stupid, like they have their girlfriends over all the time. And like, just, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Just build a big wall around their place, but yeah.
There is a big wall, and I can still hear them over there. And they're
for
brilliant.
A dome.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I had a contractor over because we had a problem with some wiring over on the side of the house after the rains, and I could hear them all over there. They were having a party, and somebody sneezed, so I said, "Bless you," and the girlfriend says, "Shh, they can hear us."
Oh.
Oh, okay. God. Yeah. So anyway, it's been fun. That's the vibe. I guess there's two vibes. I care a lot. There's three. I care a lot, and no fucks to give. So
Yeah. That's just amazing. Now, are you able to get out? I mean, you mentioned driving to like, grocery stores or pharmacies and stuff, but you able to escape the house a little bit, or are you kind of going stir crazy in the place?
I think I'm going a little bit stir crazy, but we have the front yard and the backyard. And so I go out, I do a lot of sweeping, I do a lot of like maintenance. I wound up having to put primer on the stucco around our house. I've been, doing stuff outside. Yeah, keeping myself occupied and trying to be outside as much as possible. But now, as of this week, the temperatures have leapt from like the low 70s up to the mid 90s.
Oh, yeah. Pal of mine wrote this morning from LA that she was going to maybe do some writing outdoors unless it gets too hot. And I'm like, it's 60 here and that's up. But okay, LA, different world from
no,
from New
90s. Yesterday was unbelievably, it was just like, it was fiery out there. And I saw a fire. I'm like, oh good. This is just what we need, are the fires and a pandemic and my asshole neighbors.
Yeah. Well, again, maybe one of those two will take care of the third. So that's always a possibility.
I would love it. But so, yeah. Yeah. And
Let me ask with go on.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, besides the binging on Bewitched and potentially I Dream of Jeannie, reading project, is there anything that you have if I'm going to be locked in, this is the thing I've always meant to read that I'll finally sit down and do?
So I don't read too much during the day because I fall asleep. I will just fall asleep, just puts me to sleep. But since I've been overcoming my insomnia issues, one of the strategies that the doctors gave me was reading paperbacks at night, not Kindle, nothing with a screen, just paperbacks. And I have been completely Pendergast crazy.
No shit.
Like, oh my God, I cannot tell you how much I love these damn books. And I'm like, and they're ridiculous. And he's just Agent Pendergast is just this superhero for people who don't like capes.
Yeah.
Because he can do anything. He can survive anything. He can, he's like insanely smart, and he really is a superhero. He's not human in a way. And, but he's also unspeakably hot because he's like ghastly pale and he wears black.
There you go. So they wrote it just for you.
They did. I've been meaning to write them because I've talked to Doug Preston before. He's a wonderful guy, and but I hadn't read any of these books. I had read his Amanda Knox treatise, or whatever you want to call it. It was like this incredible thing he wrote about Amanda Knox and about internet lynch mobs. And this was back in the day. This was like 2006, 2007. When he wrote this. So, it was very prescient, and it was really important work. And, so I got to talk to him about that at a Thriller Fest. I'm glad I hadn't read the Pendergast books at that point. I think the Amanda Knox piece was a much more important thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, on balance, sure.
Do you talk about the gourmet plate, or do you talk about the cheeseburger? I guess it depends on how good the cheeseburger is. Cheeseburger is pretty damn great. But yeah, this has been like such a wonderful thing. It really has kept, another thing that's keeping my spirits up. I can just total escapism, just diving into those books and seeing just stupid things happen, and it's just wonderful, and it's like pure evil going on, and I love it. I can't. Thank God I'm only on the first several books, and that there are a ton left. But I don't know how I'm going to afford to get more paperbacks. I was getting all of them from the Iliad, which is the used bookstore near us, and but now that I've got no income coming in, and Brett is he's still working, but it's we're going to be struggling. Then we'll see what happens.
You can always start one of those Patreons that's solely around help me get more books, which
get more Pendergast books.
It's the internet. That could always happen. So.
Well, I could just ask my friends, please donate me your Pendergast books. And I bet they would. I have really wonderful, lovely friends who would probably go, here you go.
If you have an Amazon wish list in place by this evening, when I'm going to post the episode tomorrow morning, if you have that in place, I will make that a link and mention it in the episode so that people who listen to this one, if they're interested, can actually gift you Pendergast books. So.
Oh my God, I would be so happy.
Get on that. Send me a link. Or bookshop.org. However, you're now that I think about it, we're supposed to do that instead of Amazon. So whatever.
Okay.
Because we're supposed to be, better people and all that stuff. Plus Amazon's taking a while to send books nowadays because they have a little bit more important stuff to take care of. So
yes. So that's been my, I wouldn't call it necessarily a project. I'd say it's more of an obsession.
Sure.
I've been reading other things, but yeah.
I've got like 15 Philip Carr, Bernie Gunther novels waiting for me. So once I start to get through this whole process of all the COVID catch-ups and other stuff, if this thing stretches into summertime, I got 15 of those plus about 15 more John le Carré novels I haven't read yet.
Yes.
I think I'm going to get through the summer pretty well, but we'll see. Now, let me ask you one thing. One of the things about you that I always liked was the friendships you had with older writers, older artists, et cetera, and some of the old comics friends that we both grew up reading. Are you in touch with either old friends? Are you reaching out more to people from your past like that? Are you making sure, or are they making sure you're okay? Are you doing check-ins with artists who might have kind of slipped under the radar at this point?
My artist friends are staying pretty visible for the most part. I have been meaning to check in with David Gerald because I haven't heard much from him. I've been a lot more concerned about my own relatives because I have some really elderly relatives I've not been able to reach. And so that's kind of scaring me, and not very reliable other relatives who should be looking after them. So that's been bothering me. But the other ones have been pretty vocal, been pretty out and about. I myself have been doing a lot of social media distancing. So because social media makes me crazy. And I was struggling with anxiety when this all first started. And I said, I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'll do Instagram. Like I go on Instagram and I'll post on Instagram and that will repost onto Facebook. And that's where I'll interact with people just on those posts mostly. The older artists, like I hear from Stephen Barnes. I assume from something I saw that Larry Niven is okay so far. I do worry about them because, that this is really bad. That really hits them the worst, the hardest.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking, Yeah. Just along those lines, a lot of these guys were freelance, maybe don't have family, et cetera. So it's, because I'm a Jewish mother to the world, I worry about this stuff.
I understand. I am married to a Jewish man. So it's, and I have a Jewish family to tutor me.
We worry. That's our thing. So.
I know.
Now, let me ask, as far as binging goes, I'm glad you're a What We Do in the Shadows fan because Amy and I are rewatching season 1 for the third time while season 2 is
I get it.
But we also picked up on something I never heard of, and I hadn't bothered to look up on IMDb before this. Toast of London, Matt Berry's show. Oh, you don't know about it? Okay.
No.
It's on Netflix. Toast of London. Matt Berry essentially playing the same character, just not a vampire, because
he's so good at that character.
As near as I can tell, that's his delivery. That's how he works. And if he's going to make his money that way, that's fine. But there's 20 something episodes of this. Whitney Matheson, the great pop culture guru, mentioned it in her pop culture recommendation email a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, we should check that out. It is so absolutely bizarre, but it's just, yeah, if you enjoy Laszlo in What We Do in the Shadows, you'll enjoy this.
Oh, he's so great. They're all so great. We were talking about how brilliant the character Colin is. And also I was telling Brett, I said, I think that his name is an homage to Colin's Port and Dark Shadows and all of that. And Brett was like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it is. It has to be Colin. Come on. I think that was very specifically chosen.
I still think the best plot line of season 1 was him and Vanessa Breyer, the emotional vampire.
Oh,
the side episode with the two of them, with everything else that went on the whole season long. The dynamic between those two and what goes on with two people who are trying to either bore or get pity out of every other human being. Yeah, I that may have been the best.
It's really genius. And I think I might have mentioned that in the past, a very long time ago, I was actually on one, it was like some Canadian station videotaped me while I was under hypnosis because my therapist at the time thought I had met a psychic vampire. Yes.
I'm sorry. I was just envisioning Colin Robinson.
Yes, Colin Robinson, but a much sexier version of Colin Robinson somehow. And it was quite an experience. And I think it was the equivalent of the Learning Channel back then. Mm-hmm. It was one of their parent companies. They sent the crew out, and there was a woman upstairs while I was doing this. There was a woman in the closet on the 3rd floor of the therapist's house who claimed to actually be a vampire, and they were going to interview her next.
Except she'd freak out with the lights, but yeah.
They'd have to, talk to her through the closet door. But yeah, it was something called Forces from Beyond or Forces Beyond or something like that. It was those really old TV shows. And I have a DVD of it too. It's frightening. I'm blonde.
Jeez.
I know.
You got to put this online. I got to see this.
I know. It's really awful. But yeah, when I thought of Colin, when I saw that, and I was like, this is genius. I just love that guy.
Cool. But all things on balance, you're past the anxiety stage of all this stuff and kind of dealing as best you can. Would you put yourself in a good space right now, I guess? Because you sound upbeat, but that could be,
well, that's because I get insanity. To talk to a human being.
Yeah, there's trust me, I'm the same way.
No, I mean, I think I'm definitely, despite just having lost all my income, I'm actually in a better place. I mean, again, like I've been alluding to this online. I have all this really big news that contractually I can't share. And I have to get writing and permission in writing first. So I was able to get permission to share it with my family over Seder. And but that was about it. And it's kind of a bummer that I can't talk about it because I think having something to celebrate in a broader way right now would be really helpful. And for a lot of people, because there was a lot of people involved in this who don't know, I can't tell. And so I'm hoping eventually this will work itself out and the news could get a lot better in the next couple of weeks. So I'm trying to just, there's stuff to look forward to. I've been having Zoom meetings with the other folks involved and, I feel cautiously optimistic about all the stuff that's happening. So it's really kind of this background thing that's been going on that has kept me afloat, even when I was really feeling like I was drowning. I mean, I knew I was not drowning as badly because I was like, look, Maria, you're really lucky. You're really blessed. There's all this really cool stuff happening. And you just need to, focus on the positive and not let all the terror, kind of suck you down. And so that's what I've been doing, and keeping all that stuff. Again, I wish I could tell everybody, but we'll get there. It'll happen eventually. It's just not right now.
Once you're out from under the NDA, I'll have you back on, or you can record a little segment talking about it, and I'll put that on one of these episodes, and we'll celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we originally celebrated signing the contract with champagne and blueberry pie, but I'd like to do something a little bigger, and hopefully maybe the more good news will come through, and we'll be able to afford to do something a lot nicer to celebrate. So, and keeping positive, staying positive.
I look forward to pictures on Instagram, or however else you're able to share. So,
yeah, for sure.
Thanks so much for coming on, Maria. And like I say, let me know when this becomes an unsecret so we can share it with everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gil.
That was Maria Alexander. Go check out her site, mariaalexander.net, for more about her books, stories, nonfiction, blog, and more. Her Bloodline of Yule trilogy wraps up in June with Snowblind, which follows Snowed and Snowbound. She's on Twitter and Instagram as Lamaupin, which is LAMAUPIN. You can find those by searching for Maria Alexander on Twitter or Instagram. And if you check out the show and episode notes for this one, you will find a link to the Amazon wish list with all of the Agent Pendergast novels she would love for you to get for her. And again, those have to be paperback, not the Kindle versions, because she's getting over her insomnia by not looking at screens. Anyway, we will be back tomorrow, I hope, with another COVID check-in. As I mentioned at the top, I don't have anybody scheduled for today, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. If you want to send me a little update to read on the air, or have something you want to share with the listeners, let me know and we'll set something up. I'm at groth18@gmail.com. That's GROTH18. You can find the contact info at our sites, vmspod.com and chimeraobscura.com/VM. You can find a link to the COVID-19 sessions at both sites, and that has all of these daily episodes. And you can subscribe at any time to the Virtual Memories Show and get access to all of these, plus 370 or so long-form conversations, most of which were recorded in person as opposed to these remotes. If you're interested in how I'm doing these remote episodes, it is a service called Zencastr at zencastr.com that records both sides' audio and gets me a cleaner signal to work with. That is spelled Zencastr, so Zencastr with no final E. It costs $20 a month, but my Patreon supporters more than cover that and my web hosting, especially since I'm not spending money on parking and tolls and subway rides and coffee and everything for those in-person episodes I was doing before. So if you can spare anything, don't give it to me. Go to the Patreons, GoFundMes, Kickstarters, Indiegogos, tip jars, whatever, for the artists and writers you like. Go to their Amazon wish lists, like this one for Maria, and show them some support. Give to your local charities, especially food banks. They are desperately in need right now. So if you can help someone, help them. I am Gil Roth. It is Sunday, April 26th, 2020. This was a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories Show podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Keep the conversation going, stay safe, and wash your damn hands.